What's good, y'all? Welcome to Conversation Piece. My name is Patrick Armstrong. I am your host, and this is In Conversation With, our monthly live series that in 2026 will become the show proper, but you're going to have to wait until December to hear more about that. Actually, maybe next month I might be talking about it. I don't really know yet. We're going to figure it out at some point. It's going to happen. But I am excited to be here with you now in 2025, the year of community. And I am really excited for my conversation today. First, though, a few shout outs. Got a shout out to Indy Arts Council. They are one of our amplifier sponsors for this event. This month, they are partnering with the Indiana Humanities to celebrate National Arts and Humanities Month, which is in October, that I just learned recently. They are raising awareness of the incredible impact arts and humanities programming has on our region's culture, economy, and quality of life. And they have been awesome supporters of the show and my work. We did an episode together with Maya Mims for WNBA All-Star, which was really cool. So make sure you check out everything that they have going on, and say hi to the people from Indy Arts Council if they are here. Is anybody from Indy Arts Council here? They said they were going to come, and then they said today they may not be here. So that's on record. Anyways, go to indyarts.org, and you can learn more about what cool stuff they have going on this month and this year. I also want to shout out Tomorrow Bookstore. They are one of our giveaway sponsors this month. Jake and Julia hosted the first one of these live shows in May. I did not know it was going to slide that far. And they have also been amazing supporters of this work, too. I actually worked there part-time doing events when we first moved back from Indianapolis to Indianapolis, and they opened up. Tonight, they've donated a signed copy of Ross Gay's Inciting Joy, and they've also donated a one-year membership to the bookstore, which is really cool. Essentially, if you just buy $2 in a month, you are already paying back for the membership, but you don't have to do that this year. You can just have the membership and be a part of all the cool stuff they have going on. So if you're on Mass Ave by the Bottle Works, stop in at Tomorrow Bookstore, check them out, and say hi. Okay, got to shout out also Tinker Street, our food partner. They are really awesome people. If you see Jordan Ivory, the GM, or Chef Tyler, say hi, say thank you for the awesome food that we're having tonight. And if for some reason you find yourself out on 16th Street and you're looking for a good meal or maybe a good cocktail, stop in to Tinker Street because they are awesome. They've been partnering with us on these events, and we're going to keep doing them for the rest of this year. And hopefully in 2026, I think we got some cool stuff cooking. So, yes, really excited about that. There's Jordan. And last but not least, shout out to Indy Reads for hosting us. Thank you, Ruba. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Jean, for my wonderful cup of coffee. Before we locked in with Draft, where we are going to be doing the rest of these, at least for this year, just down the road here, we'd already locked in this conversation, and I'm going to talk about why that happened. But I am very glad that we did that because I've not been a frequenter of the space, but I live really close to where Indy Reads used to be. And so the spirit of Indy Reads is really felt, and I felt like it was really necessary to be in that space to have this conversation. So I appreciate you for hosting us, and thank you to the team for accommodating us tonight. So if you see them, give them a high five and a hi and a shout out. And yeah, thank you. I'm rambling now, so we're going to get into it. Do not slide that far, please.
It's accessibility.
Right to Michael.
Like 100% accessibility,
I love it.
right?
No, it's great.
It's the test.
All right. My guest this evening is the CEO of this fine establishment, overseeing Indy Reads programs, brand, and growth to advance the vision of literacy for all. After a decade of doing community development work at a global scale, she decided to bring that perspective to a local level, working on the Literacy Council of Northern Virginia and launching their trademark program, Destination Workforce, which emphasizes the power of collaboration to create meaningful, student-centered transformation. Now she's here, doing that same work in Indianapolis and making an impact in ways seen and unseen. And according to those who know her, she's a pretty amazing human on top of all of that. To borrow from my rival podcaster, Michael Zarek, if the person I spoke to knew of Indy Reads and more importantly, knew the CEO, they would share near universal and definitive praise of her. I'm paraphrasing just a bit on that because the intro is extremely long right now, and it is time to introduce her because we have a lot to chat about. So not that much time to do it. So I will tarry no further and ask y'all to please join me in welcoming Ruba Marshood to the show. Ruba, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Okay. I was right. Way too much to go off on the beginning, but we're here now at the conversation, the reason that we are all gathered here today. Ruba, I know I just talked about you a lot in the intro, but for folks that may be joining us, not here, but maybe also here, who don't know who you are, do you mind sharing just a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. And feel free to ask more, because I never know what people really want to know when they ask that question.
For sure.
Well, I am, as you just shared, I am a kind of new resident of Indianapolis, came here about 4 years ago. Came into the role about 4 years ago. So I'm the CEO of Indy Reads. I guess we'll get more into what that is a little bit later. Came here first was living in the DC area for the last 10 years before coming here. Before that, working internationally, got to live and work in different parts of the world. But my origin story is that I grew up in New Jersey. Best pizza and bagels still to date in the country.
Okay.
Is there.
That's a
New
take.
York City, Jersey area. Via Palestine. So my parents came here and I was born to them here. So I'm the first American born of my family, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to have you here.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here in this space that you are now leading and have been leading for the last 4 years. When did you, as a child, know, did you know as a child that like reading or literary things were something of interest to you, books in general? Was that something that you were like, hey, I'm into that?
No. I mean, I liked reading. I liked stories. What I knew early on, being the child of immigrants, I knew early. Well, so let me share this actually. So I grew up speaking 2 languages.
Okay.
I speak Arabic and English. And I didn't know that they are 2 different languages. So I would interchange them in regular conversation with people and with friends. So as a little girl, I would walk around and say things to my friends that like the same sentence had both languages in it. And they would look at me like I made no sense.
Sure.
Which now, understandably, I did make no sense to them. And I would go home and be like, Mama, like, why don't these people know these words? Like, they look at me funny. And so I had to like learn to separate and really categorize. Okay, Arabic is Arabic, English is English, and most of the people who I'm around are English. So what I grew up learning quickly and early on was that language is a point of differentiation.
Okay.
And that there are many ways, there are many languages, and there are many ways of being, and that language and culture and food, thanks Tinker Street, go hand in hand. So really like that was sort of my opening, just being the only Arabic speaker in my community, being the only Palestinian, being the one with like the weird food, you know, compared to other people. That was sort of my my origin story, if you will.
Sure.
So I'm guessing you want to know kind of how I got into literacy then.
Well, I mean, I think I'm interested. It's like, because I think we're going to get into literacy being a really all-encompassing thing. Okay, actually, yes. I want to know how you get into literacy, because from what I read and from what I heard from your conversation with Michael is like, it kind of came about through the global work that you were doing. And I was wondering, like, what were those kind of first moments of, like, realization, this is an important thing that I think I need to pursue?
Yeah, and I'll just, I'll confess that I don't know that literacy, I'll confess that it wasn't necessarily all that strategic. So grew up sort of understanding, right, that this kind of perspective of cultures and language and that diversity through that, right? And the value of that. And always had a very strong sense for social justice and leaning towards that. It kind of started in a path of environmental justice and international development and community development work, and love that because I love people. I love people, and I'm so curious, because when you know that there are so many different ways of being and living and understanding the world, I just really wanted to get to know as many of them as possible.
Yeah.
So I love that international exposure and opportunity. And I got to be somebody who's always learning from the cultures I get to visit and be with. And, whenever there's interest in my sharing, I get to do that too. The work of international development and why I left it is a place where I found still has remnants of neocolonial sort of undertakings and underpinnings. And I found that, yes, community development work can be work independent of that, but it's a kind of an infrastructure that
perpetuates
Yeah. And so kind of found myself in that era of my life, realizing both that question of, do you change a system from within it, or do you do the work that you feel like is most impactful outside of that system? And so I left that work international and came back to the States, and I wanted to kind of think global, act local. Started volunteering with a literacy organization that happened to serve really almost exclusively non-native English speakers. So here I got to now still have that connection of people from all over the world in a different way, kind of a different spin. And from volunteering, was able to join the staff and then do all the work that you just mentioned. And then 10 years later, I get a call. There's a literacy organization in Indianapolis looking for a CEO. And I remember thinking, why are you calling me? Like, I didn't get it. I didn't see myself as a leader of the work. But what I have long seen is in some of these systems, whether it's international development or even like the trajectory of kind of nonprofit and philanthropy work in this country, there's a tradition of othering. And it's not an othering, it's well-intentioned because it's inspired by service, or the service is inspired by like haves and have-nots. And my perspective on all of that kind of counters and challenges that tradition. So when I got to work in the field of literacy and got to read some of the research and kind of understand the history of literacy organization, kind of adult literacy work in this country, again saw this othering that happens and saw it as an opportunity to remind us all that we're all in this journey together, and everybody's got something to learn and everybody has something to teach. And if we can shift that lens a little bit, what does that get to mean for our society? If we get to shift that lens from, I have English, you don't have English, I have reading, you don't have reading, and I'm going to give that to you. But if we get to shift it from, I have English, you have Arabic, and consider those on equal footing, what does that get to mean, right?
What does that mean to you, to see those things in that way?
I think what it means is that we actually get to counter othering. We get to counter the idea of anyone being less than or so radically different. We get to go beyond headlines. Growing up as a Palestinian and being told many things that are not kind or nice or true, and even as being raised by immigrants who wanted to just fit in and not make, we don't want to make other people uncomfortable. Arabic is just in the home. Our Palestinian clothes is for special events. And realizing like, if that comes from fear, that comes from this understanding and this internalized oppression of we're not the same as, and we're not welcome if we show up fully, right? And I think this really does. I think literacy actually does create a real opening to even that playing field and remind us that we're all human and we all have journeys and stories, and we're actually better as a global society for it.
I feel like we could just clip that out or end the conversation here, and that'd be great. That felt like a great wrap up, and I really loved it. And thank you for sharing all that, because I have a lot that I want to pull out. But I guess where I'm going to start, well, one, I think it makes me think about the way I've been defining what freedom looks like. And so to me, I defined it, I was on, I guess, on a podcast, somebody asked me, and I define it as a world where we lead with love and affirmation and not judgment and fear. And so when you talk about literacy being a way to understand the world, that's kind of what I hear. And when you talk about literacy also being used as a tool of oppression to other or to pit people against each other, that's what I hear. I hear judgment and fear. I don't hear we're going to affirm you and figure out how we can communicate together through other ways that maybe isn't specifically language. Instead, we're going to silo each other.
Right.
And so I'm going to go. So the reason I wanted to have this conversation was because you said something on this podcast that made me think about my life differently. Mm-hmm. And so you said, okay, you were discussing Rafat al-Reer's If I Must Die.
Yeah.
I apologize if I mispronounced that name. And you said, again, I think this is me paraphrasing a little bit. You said, literacy then encompasses all that it means to be human with and for each other. And when you said that, it made me think about my life. So I was adopted from Korea in 1990. I grew up in Rensselaer, Indiana. It's about an hour and a half north of here. White parents, predominantly white community, not very many Asian people around. I looked it up in high school one time. I think it was 0.002%. And I have a younger sister adopted from Korea, not biologically related to me, but part of that 0.002%, I believe.
Sure.
And I had a positive experience of being adopted, but also experienced a lot of things that made me to wholesale reject my identity as Asian. Like, I hated to be Asian. I did not like it. I was very uncomfortable around anything that was Asian. And it extended to a point where when I would watch film or shows or TV and see like an Asian actor, I would not see myself reflected. I would just see like usually a stunt happening. And I'd be like, oh, that's a cool stunt. But I would never think about myself as being like, oh, I could be that. And when you said that, I was like, I think literacy means, I think I was illiterate in the way of understanding this form of media. And not only just this form of media, but also understanding myself as a human being. And then I started to think about my whole life until I was 30, when I had some moments of rupture in my identity and came to quote unquote consciousness and started to go on this journey that's led me to this conversation. And think about how it really wasn't until that point that I even didn't become literate, but became aware that there were other questions that I needed to be asking about my identity, which put me on the path to become literate about who I am as a person, which then extends to all the more things. And so I bring all of that up because I appreciated what you said about understanding the world. I think that was kind of the definition that I was coming to when you said that, and we're referencing this If I Must Die. And so I'm going to shift us back because I just talked a lot and I was talking a lot about me. And I know the point of this conversation is to lift the lid on literacy. So I think that definition is something that I'm trying to kind of lose from my lexicon because it's subjective. However, I would like you to try and define what literacy is, or what your definition of literacy is. Yeah. And so I don't know if I touched on it in what I was saying, but I was just interested in if we could kind of start from there in this literacy conversation and build out from that point of what your definition is.
Sure. And thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I think literacy is a lot of what you just shared, right? It's literacy is the ability to connect and engage and critically analyze and shape things, relationships, society. Usually it helps to start with, kind of agreeing on a language.
Sure.
Like which language are we talking about? But that's part of it, right? Literacy, a part of literacy is the language. Choose, whether it's by choice or happenstance. And then it's, and where did it all come from? I mean, humans are social beings. So if we think about literacy in the arc of humanity, it was a group of people coming together, making certain sounds, attaching meaning to that sounds, agreeing on those meanings, and now you have conversation. And then from conversation, much later came reading and writing to put, okay, let's put a shape to that sound, to that meaning. And then much later came, these ideas of, okay, let's agree on, well, not much later necessarily, because oral traditions have this too, but just sort of getting to a place, modern day, right, of agreeing on laws and rules and norms and structures. And then here's a society, and here's what it means to belong. Here's what it means to have rights. Here's what it means when you don't fall in those boxes and go outside of those. And like all of that stems from a very natural kind of, our human nature is to connect with people and to connect with each other. And literacy is a vessel for doing that. And then what we do with literacy can either be, to go back to your point earlier, can either be a point of advancing freedom or a point of advancing oppression or fear.
You mentioned earlier how when you were doing the community development, the global community development, you realized like there was a point where it's like, I can do good work here, but I'm also perpetuating maybe some of the harmful things that come with this work. And then I bring that up because you talked about like being able, well, okay, so was there like a specific red flag in your mind that presented itself to you that you could reflect on now and be like, there was maybe quote unquote a literacy issue in terms of how we're translating this work, and not only from the people that we're helping and serving, but the people that are ostensibly pulling the levers and gears of how we can operate this work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, there's a story that comes to mind. I'm not sure if it answers your question, but if you'll indulge me, I'll share it and you can tell me if it answered or not. So when I was living and working in Papua New Guinea, I was not part of this, but I learned about a project that was funded by the World Bank. And this is not a judgment. Well, it is, I guess, a judgment, but, funded by the World Bank. And it was an anti-malarial campaign, which malaria sucks. Like if you've ever had it, it's awful. And the idea was, okay, all these people are getting malaria because of mosquitoes. So let's create and finance and give everybody mosquito nets to put over their beds at night so that they're sleeping and the mosquitoes can't come in. And there's DEET infused in the nets so that it can not just keep the mosquitoes from coming in, but it'll actually kill them. And then that reduces the vessel of transferring the infection and the disease. Cool theory. So this program gave these nets to the people who they saw as people who needed them. The people were not consulted. The people were not engaged in, do you agree? Is this a solution that, it was not a solution driven by the community. And they gave it to the folks, and they happen to be a coastal village, a community that lives on the coast. So what do you do with nets? You fish. So they're going out and they're fishing with these DEET-infested nets. The malaria does not get reduced. The chemical intrusion into the sea and into the food that then they're later consuming became an issue. And so it's this idea, again, of like, whether it's I have English or I have money or I have science and solutions for you. If we allow that to give us if we allow that to sort of inform an opinion of the people we're there to serve, that the people themselves don't have solutions, don't have ideas, don't have priorities, don't have science and intelligence as well, then we might be creating more harm than we are good.
What is the pushback that you see when you bring attention to something like this? Because I feel like it's probably something that people would on its face be like, oh yeah, that's bad. But then I feel like, and I guess I'm calling it lack of literacy, and maybe it's lack of being literate on the human condition from a compassionate place. But it feels like that story should drive all kinds of solutions, just because it's like a case of if we don't have the conversation with the community that is impacted, like, our solution is obviously not going to suffice. So is there some, like, what is the pushback?
Everyone has an agenda, whether if it's international development work or if it's here. People have an agenda. So in that regard, right, it's okay, maybe the agenda is simply stops at, we want to stop malaria. But maybe there's more to it, right? I mean, some of the, these global systems and even national and local systems, right, they have a predicted outcome that they're hoping to accomplish. And when you prescribe that in isolation, you're not setting yourself up to have that conversation and have your prescribed outcome be changed. Because when you actually do connect, listen, and learn from the community that you're with, then the natural response would be to actually transform what the outcome is. And what I like to say is that we make the road by walking. We build it together. Yeah. I don't have all the answers of all the goals for our, 500 learners each year who are here with us because they want to build their English proficiency. They want to earn their high school equivalency. They want to help their kids with their homework. They want to be able to go to doctor's appointments without interpretation. They want to be leaders in their communities. They want to, right? Whatever it is their motivations are. I don't have the answer of what they're going to become. But together, I think we get to bring something to the table, they get to bring something to the table, and we get to build out what that future becomes together. But a lot of work, again, whether it's international or local, doesn't necessarily, like, you have to work to let the outcome be defined through the process. Sure. You have to be patient. You have to be patient, and in nonprofit and international development, all these sectors, like, you're seeking funding to do the work, and the funder wants to know, well, what are you going to do with this money? And the funder wants to know its ROI. What's going to be the impact, the return on my investment? And so if you don't have an outcome that makes sense to them, or if you're like, we don't really know what's going to happen. Yeah. It can be really hard. So the pushback, I think, is the system itself is designed and informed both by agenda and kind of funder priorities and strategies. I mean, that makes sense. That's a long way of answering your question. Well, I mean, it's just like, it makes sense because especially here at the end, it's just like, okay, that's capitalism. Like, we're just in capitalism. We're beholden to, at the top, make it make sense for them from a, like you said, a return perspective, when in reality, like, there are intangible things that you just can't calculate that is hard. Like, it's hard to translate that for folks in that way. How have you found your way around or navigating that conversation with people to translate the intangible? Yeah. I mean, I think it requires first being aware, cognizant of this reality, and then being really intentional and committed to doing what you can to avoid it and to operate counter to it. So first, it's a decision. It is a choice. It takes some creativity. But more than anything, it's conversation. Yeah. So it's connecting with the people who are interested, who are interested in seeing an ROI, and having a conversation with them and saying, well, this is what you can impact, and this is what can look like. And it's not necessarily about one specific outcome.
Sure.
And that doesn't mean that there aren't things that, you're right. I mean, if you see our impact reports on our website, you're going to see some numbers, you're going to see stories, you're going to see things that, and that's not because because a natural consequence of the work is some tangibles.
Right.
But honestly, as much as people are willing to listen to me, we just get to have a conversation, and then we talk about what's the impact we can do as in partnership together. Whether you're a funder or a volunteer or a student yourself, a patron in our bookstore, right? Like, there are so many different ways we can interact and connect to help move and advance literacy for all.
What are some of the, I don't want to call them hidden, but I guess that's the only word that's coming to my mind right now. What are some of the hidden impacts that people don't really think about when it comes to supporting literacy work?
Confidence. I think one of the first things that we hear from our learners, well, there are a couple things that we hear. A couple things that we hear. One is that they often say that they feel seen for the first time at Indy Reads. And we take that really seriously. I take that with a responsibility. And I think what that means is that at Indy Reads, I think you've heard me say literacy is relational. So you're not just a number. We're not like, oh, here's the next one. Let's get them on the conveyor belt towards, they're level 1. Let's get them to level 2, right? It's not like a transactional approach. And because we are so student-centered, we don't kind of rush people through a process, which is what the funding mechanisms.
Sure. Well, they want to see how many people go from 1 to 2, 2 to 3.
Right. And so that's the way that the fact that we choose to focus on the student first, the human first, shows up in that way. So people say that they feel seen for the first time. When you feel seen for the first time and you feel safe, as safe as we aspire to create, I know that word is a little sensitive, but welcomed and wanted, we then create a space where we can take risks. We're all learning something. I'm still learning English, right? We're all figuring it out. So when we start to be able to take risks, we try. Yeah. And when we try and have some success, we build confidence. And when we have confidence, we go out in the world and we show up differently. So we might show up differently for our, in front of our kids' teachers at school. We might show up differently to our neighbors, show up differently at the grocery store. So I think those are some of the hidden things. And also just, literacy, I think, can very easily just be, and I'm looking around, right, can just be narrowly defined as words and the reading and writing of words. But when we can take that a little bit broader and realize it is that connection and it's that comprehension, right? Yeah. We're understanding each other and I can critically engage in the information around me. Yeah. Then starts to, when you can do that, you get to have an informed decision about something. Yeah. You get to have a more informed decision of what you're going to do about that something. And agency gets built too.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I think that was the thing for me and why I shared my experience earlier is because I had always just understood the word literacy or literary or literate, any lit word as words, books, writing, and I just felt like that was just limited in scope. So I love the idea of broadening the understanding of literacy as a whole. And how do y'all do that in your programming? How do you help now? Because you're obviously doing the X's and O's of teaching people to read and helping people along in that journey, and it's about expanding that understanding of what it means to be literate in general. So how do you all do that in the program? And can you talk a little bit about what that programming looks like?
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to say one of the things I got most excited. So when I got that phone call, 4.5 whatever years ago, there's a literacy organization in Indianapolis looking for a CEO, and why are you calling me? And where's Indiana? And would I even be welcome in just sort of honestly, right? The
necessary
urban
questions.
East Coast perspective that I had of this area and thinking, can I raise my kids here? Can we feel like this is home? Then getting to come visit and coming down to Fountain Square for the first time. First of all, the airport was like the easiest airport I've ever navigated.
People are surprised.
It
All
is
my friends that come from California are shocked.
It was like, wow, if this is a sign of what the rest of the state is going to be like, this is great. We're at a good start. Anyway, so I came down to Fountain Square and came into this space, and we hadn't yet opened. We were moving from Mass Ave.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you came here, and I hope you keep coming to this site
Definitely
in
will.
Fountain Square. But I got to come in here, and there were still books in boxes. We didn't have shelves up or anything, but there was a stage. And that was the moment where I went from, yeah, I guess we'll check this out and see what this is all about, to, oh, we get to do some shit. Can I curse?
100%.
Okay, we get to do some shit here. Like this gets really interesting and really exciting. And what I saw was the folks who come. So in the world of adult literacy, adults sign up. You go to a classroom and you learn, right? Whether it's numeracy or that, again, alphabet, grammar, sentence structure, syntax, social studies, whatever it is. At Indy Reads, our learners get to be leaders too. Mm. And when I saw that stage, that was the seed of where, oh my gosh, we're not only doing our work in classrooms, which is really dynamic and different than a traditional classroom experience. It is, but we get to go outside of those four walls.
For sure.
And I saw our students taking the stage and sharing, I'm a woman from Afghanistan. Here's my favorite cookie. Here's the recipe. Here's my favorite holiday. Here's the stories I read to my kids when they're going to bed. Here are the songs that we like to sing. That's what I saw gets to start happening. Simply because I went into an empty bookstore and saw a stage, that got me so excited. And so all of our program model is really around and has evolved to be something that, yes, we're building whatever level you're coming in at. If you're from learning to say, hello, my name is in English, or if you've got that down, but you want to work on your reading and writing, or you want to earn your high school equivalency diploma, right? Or you want to kind of improve your English for a specific career. We've got that continuum. And through our community engagement programs, we're going to be asking and inviting and encouraging you to share more about you to the degree that you want to. Maybe not everybody wants to take that stage, but I think I don't know why more people wouldn't want to come and learn about bibimbap from folks who are from there, right? And if we have students who've lived these different lives, whether you are a native English speaker and you were born here and your trajectory and journey in life was just on the more marginalized path, or if you're newer to this country and one, from the 47 different countries that that our students represented last year, and get to tell your story, get to introduce your culture to others. And that's what led us to, a couple years ago, we had some patrons come by our bookstore and ask, do you teach Spanish? We'd like to learn Spanish. And we said, well, we don't teach Spanish, but it's like the top most common language that most of our students are coming from. And one of our adult literacy ELL learners, Victor, he's a literature professor from Mexico. So we're like, we know who can teach you Spanish. Yep. And once a month in this space, he's here to teach Spanish to the folks who want to learn Spanish. Does that answer your question?
100%
I'm talking a lot.
Question.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I mean, that's the whole point. I want you to be talking because I'd be talking too much sometimes.
Yeah. So our whole program model is designed to be that, and that it's we need you in this space, whether you're here as a student and we're here as a teacher, or you're here as a volunteer, or you're here as a patron. Like we the movement towards literacy for all doesn't work without every piece of the cylinder kind of activated.
Yeah. It doesn't work without the community, or without a community being built to be able to make it go. And I think what I really loved about what you just shared is this idea of giving people the stage, like seeing the stage and being like, oh, I can't wait to put somebody there to tell their story. And I don't know why people wouldn't want to come learn it either, but I do know why people wouldn't want to come up on the stage and share. And it's because historically in this country in particular, people have not been empowered to share for any reason. You've been told to keep it inside, or at least I was. And I know a lot of people that I grew up with shared that same mentality. And that's one of the reasons that I was like, oh, it's abnormal to be Asian. And then when I first meet other Asian people and they tell me that I must not really be Asian because I grew up with white people, it's like, oh, okay, maybe that isn't the normal way. And feeling like, and then not feeling like I'm able to share that with other people, with a community of people, even the closest people to me. And then thinking that is reality. When in reality is, I just needed somebody to be like, yeah, dude, tell us what's up. Yeah. Share what's going on inside.
Say more.
So you can have, so then we can just talk about it. And we don't have to have solutions necessarily. It's just, I'm going to empower you to tell your truth. And I think when people, one of the reasons I love podcasting is because you just see people's eyes light up when you're just like, tell me about your story. And I think I know what that's like to get that opportunity. And so I want to, like, the best thing is when you run into somebody who's trying to create that platform and give it to other people. So I love what you're doing here in terms of not just giving people the skills and the tools for literacy, but empowering them to utilize those things to then tell their own stories, because we don't have enough of that. And that's how we get people, like you said, to broaden their horizons, is because they've heard it directly from another person.
Can I say something?
100%.
I know it's in our mission statement. I know empower is there, but I actually take issue with it because we don't give power to anybody. We help people discover their own power. We hope to, right? We believe that everybody has their power. Nobody can take it away and nobody can give it to you. It's something that you have. And so that, again, helps kind of make sure that we're not like, I'm not more or less.
Sure.
We're different, but, we're still here. And by sharing, we get to create something different and new together. Yeah. And a lot of our work, when I look at literacy work and I look at the history of this country, we ground our work in the understanding, the very real understanding that the ability to read and write was not a guaranteed right on purpose for most of the people in this country. From its earliest days, even through today, that our Black and brown brothers and sisters were denied the right to write. They were punished if they learned how to read. And then later, when the right to vote became more universal, came stipulations. You can't vote unless you can prove that you can read and write. And the questions and the words that they were asked to read and write were set up for failure. Yeah. And so we know, that then we can talk all day about sort of our government policies and funding and how schools get funded or defunded. But all to say, we know that there's good reason why people might have grown up here and be struggling to read and write. We also know, an extension of that is sort of our global community and why people come here. And we know, especially today, that not everybody is treated as being welcomed. You're coming here and, there's, why did my parents want to just make sure, like, no, we're not here to be different and rock the boat, right? We're just trying to contribute and be part of this community. And all to say that all of that, like, we don't shy away from that, because if we don't acknowledge that and build our programming with that context in mind, then we're not doing it right.
Yeah.
and we're doing a disservice to our mission and to our community.
Totally. Well, I love it. I actually understood empower in this sense to be the way that you're describing it, as like we're helping you discover what you already have.
Yes.
I think about the same thing when people are like, oh, you found your voice, or we help somebody find your voice. Like, well, you've always had your voice, but nobody's ever told you to use it, or like
gave you a mic.
And again, giving you the mic, and I don't even like, I'm like, I don't even like using that language of giving you the thing. Like, just take it. Like, we should just be taking the thing, because we should be affirming people in who they are to just be who they are. Like you said, like, people want to come here and be part of the community and contribute. And at the end of the day, I think it's even simpler than that. It's like, people just want to be. And right now we navigate the world in such a way where people are afraid to be, to just exist. I have a couple more questions before we open it up for questions. One thing, we've been talking about community, so I have to get this in. We have a recurring segment on the show called Give Them Their Flowers, where we ask our guests to shout out a person or persons they feel like right now deserve their flowers. Shout out to Madeline McKinnon and Frida's Flowers for sponsoring this segment for the entirety of the show. But I wanted to ask you, Ruba, if there was somebody or someone or someones that you felt like deserve their flowers at the moment.
Oh my gosh, such a shift. Okay, so one person.
Yeah, you can pick as many people as you want.
Okay, I think Jean deserves her flowers.
Yes,
Jean deserves her flowers. I'm gonna shout out. This might sound selfish. I'm gonna shout out our learners at Indy Reads, the people who decide to show up and allow us to be alongside them in their journey to improve whatever it is that they're, their academic, their language, their engagement. It takes a lot of courage to show up like that, and it takes a huge commitment to stay engaged. And yeah, I want to shout them out. It's not easy. It's not easy to be a grown-up with a family and all these things, and to like make time and effort and dedicate it to bettering yourself and advancing opportunities for yourself and your family.
I love it. Shout out to the learners, because they're the leaders. They're leading us in the work that's being done.
Yeah,
so
we get to learn so much from them.
I apologize for the tonal shift. I looked at my watch and I'm like, oh, I think I'm a little bit over.
I love that you asked that.
Have people ask their questions as well. So I'm going to start wrapping it up here. This might be another hard tonal shift back, but
I'm ready.
I told you that I saw something earlier today that, I don't know, I think I might have told you this. Anyways, I was on the social media apps and I was scrolling, and I got algorithmed a thread that I went to save, and then it refreshed by itself and I lost it. But I wanted to save it because it was like I had an instant reaction, and I think the instant reaction was good, but I also think it speaks to how I used to react to things in the past from a media perspective, from a quote unquote illiterate perspective when it comes to that. So kind of want to just get your initial take on just this one sentence thing, and maybe unpack it a little bit, and then we'll go from there. So the thread said that the literacy rate in Palestine is 97%, and the literacy rate in America is 79%. I saw that, and I was like, and then it said, think about that. And I was like, oh, I'm going to think about that. I'm like, that's really interesting. I want to look into that more. Let me save this thing. Then it went away. And then I was like, I'm about to have this question or this conversation. And I want to bring this up because I think people can see that devoid of all context and have many differing reactions. So one, I was wondering kind of what your instant reaction is to that. And two, like, what do you think people maybe, we'll start there. What is like your instant reaction to that particular statement?
Well, hell yeah. Statistic? I mean, it's like I knew it. So
yeah, for sure.
No, but it's an indicator of something, right? It's an indicator of a few things. One is that my parents grew up with a value that was imparted on them by their parents, and they've imparted on me and my brother, which is that, and for over 100 years, Palestine has been under attack as a country, as a people, as a culture. So the value is that so many things can happen to you in life. People can take away your home. They can take away your belongings. They can take away your money. They can take away so much, but nobody can take away your mind. And there's this huge value on education, that when you have education, no matter what happens to you in life, you can restart, you can rebuild, you can do something different, right? And I like to take that a little bit further and say curious. Let's be curious. If we have curiosity, we're always inquiring, and so we're always ready to learn, build our education, and do more. But why, so Palestinians value education. We value life and we value education. And we put a priority on that. And another piece that's in there, and I don't want to get too lost in this, but there are a number of religions represented in Palestine. All three Abrahamic faiths, right? Like, people forget that Jews can actually be Palestinians too. So Christianity, right? Jesus is from Palestine. Was. Christianity, Judaism, Islam all have like a strong connection there. The majority of Palestinians are Muslim, and one of the first word that the Quran tells Muslims. So in the story of Islam, the Quran was revealed to the angel Gabriel, or by the angel Gabriel to the Prophet Muhammad. And the first word was read. The first word from God to the people was read. So I think, Palestinians value education, both because it's a survival, and they value education because they're for the majority, right, their belief system values the power of reading and literacy.
I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
And I think my only follow-up is one of the reasons I brought it up, because I think, and I said, like, people could have a myriad of reactions. I think one of the reactions that a lot of people in this country would have is most likely the wrong one. And I mean the wrong one in the way of they just will misunderstand what that means, particularly devoid of, like, especially this context that you just laid out. And so I guess my question is, what should people take away from that when they see that? Obviously, I want them to take away everything that you just said. But how do we get to a point where people can't? I guess that is actually probably my question. How do we get to a point where we can take away this additional context that you've shared when we see something like that, instead of feeling like I'm slighted because I'm an American and I don't like this statistic or something like that? Like, I guess that I'm my perspective is colored by the places that I've come from and the people that I've known.
Sure.
Because and I know that those people will react in this way. And I don't want them to, because I want them to understand this context. So I want to know, how can I help people get to that point?
I don't know that I have a perfect answer. Everybody's got their journey. I do believe people can be invited alongside. Like, you might see this and see somehow, it inspire, going back to your initial point, right? This might trigger your fear and your maybe hate, right? And I mean, literacy is not the only one where America shows up kind of poor.
Sure.
Like, our maternal health, our education, our health system, our prison, right? All of that. So there's, pick one. Sure. Like, we've got work to do.
Yeah.
So my first, I guess, if someone is just oppositional to accepting our reality, can hold up a mirror. I think, where's that coming from and why? I also think, it's sort of, I'm all for meeting people where they are and inviting them alongside. I'm also not at all for stepping back to catch, to stay where they are.
Sure.
So that they're comfortable. Like, here's where we are.
Sure.
And this is what we've got to do.
Yeah.
And if we really believe that, well, and honestly, I think if people are there's a root here that we haven't talked about, which is racism, right? Like, if we're okay with genocide of anybody, if we're okay with the prison industrial literacy to prison pipeline that we have in this country, right? There's work you've got to do, right? Like, because if you're okay with it happening to anybody, I think what we forget is that it can happen to you too.
Sure.
And we tend to think, I think people tend to feel like somehow, somehow in a bubble, protected from these things, right? So for the last 2 years, a poem that's been coming up to me in my mind has been like that. Like, the first they came for the communists, and I wasn't a communist, so I didn't do anything, right? And then they came for me, and there was no one left. So I mean, I think there's a little bit of, and I say that knowing, we really do at Indy Reads, we really do welcome everybody, every perspective, everybody is welcome. And I like to say there is something for everybody, but you might not like everything that we do, right? And so whether you come here because you want to find like the cheap books on art history or books on religion or whatever it is, but maybe you're here and you're perusing and you happen to be here when there's a community event with somebody talking about something, like, maybe you'll also pick up something else while you're here. And so I guess it's an invitation, but don't expect us to slow down for you and turn that fear into curiosity. Like, just encourage people to do that. And we can't control anybody's behavior. We can't control anybody's reaction, but we can offer invitations to be curious and to be willing to learn a little bit more.
I love it. Be curious, and you're offering the space for people whenever they are entering their space of curiosity, they have a place to come.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you shared here in this conversation.
I appreciate you.
I feel like we've only just scratched the surface, and I have a lot more questions, but I know other people have questions too. So one last one to wrap it up before we open it up the floor. For people out there that are watching right now that are interested in supporting or want to know where they can find this place that we're sitting in right now, or just interested in helping out the work that Indy Reads is involved in, how do they do that? Let them know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, our website, indyreads.org.
I don't need it.
Indyreads.org. You can, if you're local, come by our bookstore. You can support us by shopping. You can support us by volunteering. You can support us by being engaged in any number of different ways. If you're not local and you want to support, you can shop online on our bookstore at Indy Reads Bookshop. Casey's got the website. IndyReads.org/shop.
Got it.
Yeah. Come and be engaged.
Did you hear that, non-local people? All my friends out there that follow me on Instagram and we've connected over the last 5 years. IndyReads.org.
Yeah.
/shop.
And follow us on social media too.
Social media as well.
Got all the handles.
Ruba Marshood, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Let me see if I can get you back your notes.
No, it's okay. We'll get them later. All right.
Okay.
Questions? Who's got questions? Anybody have questions? Go for it.